Hello, welcome to The Cutting Room, the movie critique show from All the Right Movies. I'm John, and with me today are Matt.
Hello.
And Westy.
Hello.
Westy getting into the spirit of things by coming dressed as George Lucas today.
You said you were going to mention that. That's how far he gets into me. How far he gets into me subconscious.
Well, our previous...
I'm here to direct a media YouTube video.
Well, our previous two episodes of The Cutting Room have been reviews of new releases in the Batman and X. But today we're going a few years back to critique a classic. Or a hit.
Critique.
A hit. Yeah, it was a hit.
Yeah, it's definitely a hit.
The box office hit. Or what it definitely is a film that occupies a fascinating and pretty unique spot, I think, in film history. So we're talking about the one and only Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace.
Yes.
Before we do that, though, I think some context in place might be helpful. The three of us are all old enough to remember The Phantom Menace the first time around in 1999, aren't we?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And that run-up, I mean, it was the most eagerly anticipated film in history, possibly.
The hype surrounding this movie has been overwhelming. Now the question is, will it deliver?
Its release was a big event, and the critical and public slamming it received afterwards has become pretty legendary as well. Mm-hmm. But despite that slamming, we're still here talking about it. So why are we talking about The Phantom Menace now, over 20 years later? Matt?
Well, I guess because now it's complete, isn't it? The whole Skywalker saga thing. So people kind of get divided into camps. Do you prefer the original trilogy? Do you prefer the prequels? Do you prefer the sequels? How does it all balance out? Were the prequels as bad as everyone says, or was there just too much expectation heaped upon it? Was there actually some interesting stuff in there? You know, I mean, it's Star Wars. People obsess over it. People fight over it. People fall out over it. Yeah. So I think it should still be good to go back and just answer the question, is it as bad as we remember it being?
Yeah. Well, we're going to find out. Well, my earliest memory of the film is actually when the trailer for it first came out, like 1998 it must have been. I mean, what a trailer that was. I watched it again before we did this. It is still a brilliant trailer. First time round, with no context. I mean, the battle droids, the pod race looked incredible in that trailer. And that shot of Darth Maul lighting a double-ended lightsaber. I mean, I thought I was going to burst into flames the first time I saw that when I was 17. Do you remember that Austin Powers trailer as well? The one that said, if you see one film this summer, see Star Wars.
Yes.
But if you see
two.
two.
If you see two, see Austin Powers. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, brilliant.
Expecting someone else?
And when it came out, the film, and I saw it, I was perplexed, I think is the word, more than anything. It was like, was that good? It must have been. It must have been good. It can't have been bad, surely. I need to see it again. So I did see it again 5 times at the cinema. It's the most times I've ever seen any film at the cinema. I think I was hoping it was all suddenly going to click, but it never really did. And to be honest, it still really hasn't. And I'm still pretty perplexed about the whole thing more than anything else. I think what makes The Phantom Menace interesting now and worth talking about is that run-up. This is back in the day when movies would come out in the US about 3 months before the UK. And I remember people flying out to see it from the UK to be first in line. You see footage now of those people back then, and the thought they might actually not be good is like an impossibility to them. They can't compute a reality where The Phantom Menace will not be brilliant.
What are you going to do if the movie really sucks?
Probably see it again.
There are now 8 wonders of the world. One of them being this movie.
And watching that now, I mean, it's like, there's no chance of this going wrong, is there? Absolutely no chance. But I would say we're not here to say George Lucas raped our childhood or anything stupid like that. No. In all honesty as well, with the nostalgia I have, actually developed a bit of fondness for this film over the years, much more so than the other 2 prequel films, I would say. So we're going to look at it through our eyes now, like you say, Matt, and how well or badly it's aged, which should be funny. I mean, interesting.
Yeah, it should be.
And Westy, you in The Phantom Menace, still furious?
So furious. I'm only doing this because I need closure. I think this is a lot to do with what's wrong with this, and I think we need to address a few things.
Be a new man after this.
Hopefully, be a new man. It's like this is
going to burn the lumberjack at the top.
Exactly, but that's the thing. It's like Yeah, I just need closure from it. Really, I need some peace in my life, and then I think this is one of them things that really, like you, John, I was just so confused by it, and I did leave, and I thought that was brilliant, and then I just slowly thought as I thought about the film, going like on the night time, just was it?
Yeah.
That lightsaber fight was good, but what was the middle? What was that? Why is the two Queen Amidala's? Why did the run so fast and then never do it again? What the fuck is going on? It was just one of them things. It was just, for me, very confusing, and I think it might be to Lucas, to be applauded, really. He's made it so confusing that people have to go back to the cinema and watch it 5 times. No wonder it was a hit. So yeah, I want some therapy, I want some feedback, I want some closure, I want to put this to bed. So let's do it.
Great. Well, let's do it then. We're going all in on The Phantom Menace. 32 years before the events of the original Star Wars, 2 Jedi Knights set out to stop the Trade Federation from carrying out a full-scale invasion of Naboo. On their travels, they come across a gifted boy, a clumsy idiot, and a few possibly racist stereotypes along the way to discovering the dreaded Sith have returned. Yeah. Written and directed by the big fella, George Walton Lucas, The Phantom Menace was produced by Lucasfilm, distributed by 20th Century Fox, and stars Liam Neeson as Qui-Gon Jinn, Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi, Natalie Portman as Queen Amidala, Jake Lloyd as Anakin Skywalker, and Ahmed Best as Jar Jar Binks. I've written Jar Jar Bonks here.
I don't watch that five
entirely.
Just when you thought it couldn't get any worse.
Sounds like it's better.
So what we do on our cutting room episode is dissect the movie in question by discussing the direction, the writing, the cast, the visuals, our own individual highlight, and then we'll decide if the film makes the cut or ends up on the cutting room floor. Mm-hmm. So up first then, the first part. Every saga has a beginning. And we're talking about the direction of The Phantom Menace. Having not directed a movie in 22 years, George Lucas suddenly decided he was in a position to direct the most anticipated film of all time. Mm-hmm. How'd that turn out, Westy?
Yeah. Well, not very well, did it? I think it's fairly obvious that what he did on Star Wars was just a real passion project and a bit of a fluke, really, that it came off. And this, he's pushed it a little bit too far. I know that there was other people that he'd approached. I know he approached Zemeckis. I know he approached Ron Howard. I know he approached Spielberg, and they all said it was too much for them to do. So I think it was just one of them things where he thought, if this is going to get made, I'm going to have to do it myself. Yeah. Nobody else can take this on. This is mine. This is my responsibility. So I want to do it. But he's just a kid with too many sweets, isn't he? He's just got too much to play with, too much to throw out. He's too confused about what he wants it to be about. He just thinks it cannot fail, and it has this kind of almost naive ignorance, just because it's Star Wars and because it was so successful that it will be successful. And he was right. Yeah. Because he could have put anything out in 1999 related to Star Wars. See a lightsaber again after 22 years. The people who'd seen it, even we grew up with it, and then there was generations before us who'd seen it in the 70s. And you've got a huge, huge fan base there who are going to see it regardless. So it was one of them things. It was like, just let's see how much merchandise we can get out of it. Let's see how much we can get, this to smash the box office. Let's just get it made one of the most amazing trailers ever made, just to entice people in. I mean, people were going to the cinema to paying full money to watch a film and then leaving after the trailer. Yeah. I remember that happening because I was working at the cinema at the time, and this got me the job at the cinema because it was going to be so busy. Really? They were bringing on extra people, so this is how I got the job. Right. So I am quite nostalgic to this as well, which meant that I could go in and watch that lightsaber fight any time that I wanted, which was fantastic. So I was going to watch the end, so I didn't actually have to pay for it and go and watch it that many times. But yeah, I mean, he just doesn't know what he wants to do. It's just very confused. The direction of this film is just almost non-existent. Yeah. It's just so basic. I mean, I know he said to Sarah Finowitz, who did the voice of Darth Maul, just make him sound evil. And then, the designer for Darth Maul, just draw your worst nightmare. Yeah. And it's direction like that it's just wide open and just being like, well, it's not specific enough for me. And that it comes across in the film. There's nothing specific about this film. It's got absolutely no kind of point where it's driving towards. It hasn't even got a main character for a start. Like we don't have a clue what's going on. So he knew for a fact he had something that was going to win, but then called it the Phantom Menace. What's a Phantom Menace? There isn't a Phantom Menace in the film. It just sounds cool. It's a Flash Gordon baddie from the 60s.
Yeah, that's where you got it from.
And it's just like, that just sounds cool. Yeah. But the title doesn't even relate to the film. That's how confused the direction is here.
Yeah.
Madness.
I mean, of all the bad things about the Phantom Menace, and there's quite a few bad things, some good things as well, which we'll talk about, but of all the bad things, I think the worst might be the direction. Lucas seems every inch the director who hasn't made a film for 22 years. There's a story here, and I don't think it's too bad a story either, but Lucas telling of that story, his own story, and pulling it all together is very poor. The storytelling generally, I think, is confusing. So, I'm going to ask you both a question. The start of the film, when we're with Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon, and the blockade on the ship, can either of you tell me what's going on there with that blockade? Because I've got no idea. Still. No idea.
They went to settle some kind of trade federation deal for Naboo, didn't they? And then they start talking about taxation, and then I started, it's like, get your lightsaber out, will you please? And it was just, I don't know, it's just such throwaway dialogue. It's outrageous, the start of the film. It's just, when you see the lightsabers igniting the smoke, it's like, yes, you've got your audience back. But nobody knows what's going on, and nobody cares.
Exactly, yeah.
Really.
And then the final act, we've got 4 plot lines running simultaneously in the lightsaber fight, Amidala and her troops in the palace, Jar Jar and the Gungan battle, and the space battle with Anakin. 4 simultaneous plot lines. I mean, great. If you can pull that off, fantastic. But Lucas doesn't pull it off. It's really muddled, and the tones don't match either. It's like watching at least 2 different films, that final act. And working with the cast. I mean, Lucas has got an A-list cast here, and he manages to get all-time worst performances out of every one of them. That's, I mean, some achievement, that. Some of them have ruined their careers. Some of them have ruined their lives. Have you seen any of the making of documentary? The Beginning, it's called. It's full access behind the scenes. It's really good. And Lucas is totally surrounded by yes men who are scared of saying anything negative to him. Rick McCallum, who produced the film, Rick McCallum would rather stick a fork in his own eye than say, not sure about that, mind, George.
My sole function in life is to make what George wants physically happen.
There's a bit on there as well when Spielberg visits the set and Lucas is talking to him about the Gungan battle at the end.
10,000 troops on either side.
Both sides coming at each other.
Coming at each other.
That's great.
It's going to be great.
That's going to be great.
It's going to be great.
It's going to be great. Over and over again. And Spielberg just his mate telling him what he wants to hear, I think. But Lucas genuinely thinks it's going to be great. And I wish it had been, George. I genuinely do.
I wish it had been. To me, it's not like he hasn't directed a film for 22 years. It's like he hasn't seen a film for 22 years.
It is. Some of the mistakes are so basic, it's crazy.
Yeah, some of the camera moves are just outrageous. It's just floating around the room, and then it cuts to a static shot, and then it breaks the 180-degree rule, and he doesn't understand what that is. It's just absolute madness.
Matt, what about you and Georgie Boy on this one?
Very much the same. I just don't understand him because he's directed Star Wars, and then he says, because of the pressure of that, he wanted to step back, not do the sequels, give them to some other directors, produce, write, and said, fine. I actually understand that, but I don't understand why he didn't then and just continue to direct smaller films without any pressure. Do more like American Graffiti, do something experimental again, like THX. Just small films where there'd be no pressure on them because they're not Star Wars. I mean, this is the guy who wanted to direct Apocalypse Now on 16mm. What happened to that guy who just wanted to experiment and do weird stuff? Because then you get here, in the most anticipated film of all time, and he tried to get other people in. But when that doesn't work out, he doesn't, like, look sideways. Oh, who could be different? Who could be interesting? He just goes, oh, go on, then I'll do it. You know what? I'll do all 3. They'll be fine.
I know, yeah.
You're like, George, you've not directed a foot of film in over 20 years. Do you not think that's going to be a problem? And he's just like, nah, it's fine. It's like riding a bike, isn't it? Once you've done it, you never forget. and this is what you end up with, a film directed by someone who hasn't done anything for over 20 years. And for me, it commits the worst crime a film can do, and it's just be really, really boring. Because I could forgive so much in this film if it was fun, but it's not. It's really dull. I could forgive it being childish because, he could say, well, look, the original trilogy, that was for one generation of children. This is for a different generation. That would be fine, but at least give the adults something to get involved with. And like, I know I get a lot of stick from you guys because I love, Pixar films, but they are great examples how you make a kids film that an adult can still sit down and watch. Toy Story is aimed at kids, but show me a grown adult who can't sit down and enjoy that. I mean, it'll be Luke, obviously, but obviously, apart from Luke, every other adult will still enjoy it. But you don't get that with this. And, I'm very happy to say I still enjoy The Force Awakens because at least that's fun and it's fast-paced. I mean, afterwards you can start to pull it apart and pick various bits of it to pieces. Of course you can. But in the moment, it's fun. Phantom Menace doesn't even have that. The direction is just so dull and it's so slow. and that torpedoes everything. And like I say, John, there are good things in this film, but they're all come undone because of Lucas's direction.
Yeah, there's footage as well of when they had the first screening of the Phantom Menace, the first cut of it, and everyone's just what we're going to do here?
How do we save this?
It's like disaster zone.
I may have gone too far in a few places. Boggles the mind.
So George Lucas' direction on the Phantom Menace, then, I think pretty great by the sounds of it.
Yeah, flawless, absolutely flawless. Giving Spielberg a run for his money here.
You've reached the end of part 1. Please come back for the next video for lots more on the Phantom Menace.